Today's panel, Mucho Dinero, Unlocking U.S. Digital Music Royalties for Latin Music, was put together to make sure that we are at the MLC really highlighting one of the, in my opinion, fastest growing genres of this era. The recent stats have shown that Latin music genre in the streaming market has grown year over year at a rate faster than many of the other top 10 genres, and it is a global genre, as we've seen with collaborations with Latin music creators and music creators from all over the world, including Asia, all over Europe, and other parts of the sort of Hispanic diaspora. I think that us at the MLC have a unique opportunity to ensure that our relationship with the Latin music creator community is growing and that it is strong, as we are responsible for administering the blanket license that covers the source of income that is the fastest growing right now in the Latin music creator community. We've recently brought in over $424 million in unmatched mechanical royalties, historical royalties. And we would, I think it's logic to assume that a big portion of that would be due to Latin music creators whose music has been streaming on the top services for many years now, with sometimes little to no connection to the ecosystem where those licensings take place. Now with the MLC being the central hub for digital mechanical licenses for the blanket, it makes sense that we have these relationships with organizations like each of yours, and reaching the community through these conversations. So I want to start with opening up an introduction. I'm gonna let each of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So starting on my screen first, I have George.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Jorge here, founder and CEO of Symphonic Distribution. We're a digital distributor and artist services company with offices in Brazil, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and throughout the US. We've been fortunate to have worked with El Alfa, La Rosmaria, Juan Luis Guerra, among many others. And I just want to say thanks to Day and the MLC for having me on and doing this.
Thank you, George. Yaira.
Hi, my name is Jira Santiago. I'm from Puerto Rico, but I'm currently here in LA. My company's name is Protege Tu Música TV, or Protect Your Music TV, and not only offer services, legal services and advice, but also assist artists and musicians in the process of affiliating to different PROs, the Performing Rights Organization, and other services related to their careers. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. Delia.
Hi, Delia Orjuela, and I'm the current president of the Latin Songwriters Hall of Fame. I formerly was the VP of Latin at BMI, and I'm really excited about this conversation and getting the songwriters more informed about MLC and what the benefits will be of being part of the MLC. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Stephanie. Stephanie, you're on mute.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Santiago Rolon. I'm the director and founder of Take Creative Control Latin. We are a community of lawyers, creators, innovators, and we advocate for the creative rights of people of color, and just a major advocate within the Latin space.
Thank you. So let's get things started off. I'm going to start with sort of broad topics, and we're going to sort of narrow into the issue at play. And then towards the end, we will be able to open up to a Q&A. If you're tuning in and would like to ask a question, we do have a Q&A box. So please post your questions in that Q&A box, and we'll get to them one by one. Don't post it in the chat because we might not see it if the other chatter kind of pushes the question up. So please use the Q&A box. And there's some things that we might mention on the panel where our support, our team members behind the scenes will be able to post links or address it in the chat. All right, so the big sort of question is, how do you describe or define Latin music as a music industry category. It seems like, the term obviously is a catch-all, but there may be different perspectives on what is Latin music. So what I'll do is, if you want to just sort of, we'll start with just sort of chiming in as you have input, and if that seems to be a little difficult, then I would call one-on-one. But for now, this is sort of a posed question, and feel free to jump in.
Sure. I'll just say that, I think Latin has become more than just a regional genre now. It's very much accepted worldwide. It's transcended just sort of one particular genre and kind of evolved into multiple. But for me, growing up, and what I've always felt like it's just a very exciting, positive, culturally moving type of genre in general. And it's just pretty exciting to have seen the growth over the past few years, and more to come, that's for sure.
You're on mute.
Yeah, right here. It's a catch-all term that we use to define like all music that is in Spanish, but I think there are still some problems we need to address when it comes to, determining which genres, subgenres, and styles are included in that particular term. And sometimes people might feel that they are not being categorized correctly when it comes to, the DSPs and allowing people to really look for new artists and new people with different genres. Maybe a matter of authenticity, that people may think that they are not categorized correctly. So there are a lot of issues with regards to that broad category, but I think the industry is moving towards like really appreciating the fact that we are growing worldwide, and maybe we can push forward and try to make DSPs hire some more people to be able to categorize all those genres and subgenres adequately, and include people like Latin people that maybe can understand it better. So I think it's good, and we need to focus on the things that we need to address in the future.
Interesting. Well, I like the fact you referenced sort of like subgenres and sort of different styles, which is almost like even we'll talk dialects. How's the Latin music category evolved over the last decade? One thing I noticed, I have here in Los Angeles, I have two friends who I went to college with at UCLA, who their families were they created original mariachi music, and it was something that's been passed down just in their family as a tradition, and it was super passionate about it. But the younger generation, my peers in college, wanted to quote unquote commercialize that, because they've always did mariachi in the family at special events, but it was never something they did outside of family functions. But they were really good, and finally went to the process of finding a distributor and getting their original music up online, and then sort of had some sort of challenges internally with the family in terms of taking something that they felt was very close to their heritage and the family, and making it available to the general public. So when you look at maybe I don't know if it's generational or if it's just particular styles of Latin music, how has kind of the globalization and the access to internet and access to easier distribution sort of changed either the landscape or or how the kind of the Latin music category has evolved?
I think, and I mean, because you mentioned, like for example, mariachi music. I mean, I think it's evolved because of the artists, and producers and even songwriters that it's a new generation. And yes, before it was probably something that you would only play at a family event or something more that was just more traditional. But I think now, with mariachi now, it's pop music. I mean, with artists like Alejandro Fernandez and with Pepe Aguilar, or now Angel Aguilar, is that new generation that is taking it, making it more accessible for even the DSPs to think, it's something cool, the new generation. It's being provided in those new platforms. It's more accessible, but it's evolved even from just being something that you played at home. The concerts, but it obviously has evolved because of the artists, the exponents, that have taken it out of that box of just being family music. That's what I think.
Yeah, I feel like going off of what Delia said, Latinos we're very cultural. We are very proud of our culture. We like to, you'll see a Latino from the Bronx, repping Puerto Rico, and they probably haven't been to Puerto Rico in like 15, 20 years, but we're still gonna rep. And I feel like that's something about our culture that has allowed us to be able to through generations take the music culture and just continue spreading it throughout. And then chiming on what she said about the mariachis, we see people and artists such as example of Victoria La Mala from Rock Nation taking that difference of the mariachis and that regional Mexican genre to another level, also incorporating what she is now and just music from now. So the evolution of cultures,
Mm-hmm.
while still remaining authentic, is what's changed for us now within this digital age, and how we take music and cultural music still now in 2021.
I think that's a good point. I think both of you made a good point as far as the artists sort of innovating within their genre, taking something that's been historically traditional and saying this is something that we can make available and accessible to the masses. Other people that are not Latin music creators or Latin listen to this music. As a matter of fact, when I used to do in-store music at a retail chain during the holidays, we curated music that was in Spanish. There was mariachi music and other type of music, and you'd hear that alongside, Mariah Carey tracks and Boyz II Men holiday tracks, and you just hear like this mariachi song or Feliz Navidad and like all this other stuff. So, it's definitely been a crossover for many years. How does today's emerging Latin music creators position themselves at the intersection of Latin music and the U.S. music market, in the sense of like, is there some barrier that has to be crossed over to effectively engage the U.S. music market? I would like to hear your opinions on that in general.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think a lot of creators first are becoming much more data driven. I've seen various cases of Latin focused artists starting to want to work with artists that are successful in other genres, or in particular in other languages, or even in the United States. And also just seeing kind of like English speaking artists being very open to the idea of actually collaborating with Latin as well. So I think that's really helping folks position. It's interesting, I do some production on the side as well. And I did a sort of like a song that had a bit of like a reggaeton style beat, but I worked with two, American speaking artists that did their own take on it. It's all in English, but it's really making a social statement for causes that they believe in. And that's been a really, solid song that they've been able to push. And I haven't had a record that's gotten 50,000 streams that I produced in a long time. So I was very happy to see that. But I think in general, what we did was I was looking for artists personally that had a certain amount of traction, but that could sort of still sound similar to the Latin style and flavor, but didn't necessarily have to change their language in order to do it. And I think that's happening a lot more. And I've seen also some Latin artists being really interested in working with Afro beats and other, genres as well from different parts of the world, just to be able to sort of tie in your own listener fan base to that fan base that is big in those regions as well. So just data, I think, is really helping folks to just kind of cross over and get a little bit larger, not just in the US, but across.
I think it's really important to note that when we really sit and look at this grand scheme of the map, that we have, And the fact that you know, as right as Spanish speakers, right, let's say on there, we have an entire continent. You know, we have South America, we have an entire continent, we have Mexico, which is huge. You know, we have Puerto Rico, which is 100 by 35 miles, but we are loud. You know, you know, we have Spain, we have so many areas in the world that we cover. So really, when we sit down and think about the numbers and think about how major Latin music has really become, I think that it's right, it's right to note that we got really good at marketing, and that we got really good at at data, and we got really good at making sure that, okay, let's capitalize on all these other places that we are part of, and let's connect with an artist from Brazil because it's in the same area as you know, these different places, as Chile, Colombia, etc. So when we really sit down and think about the fact that as Latinos, we do cover so much globally, that it's not just Puerto Rico, it's not just Mexico, it's not just Colombia. You know, we cover so much globally. I feel like that's when people are going to even understand our growth right now, you know. And because I feel like for us, and you know, somebody like Delia, who's been in the business for such a long time, I'm sure she has been seeing this, you know. So understanding.
Making me sound old.
No, but you know, that you've seen the, you know, the projection is what I'm saying, like that projection of the fact that Latinos, you know, we cover so much land right now, that it was only a matter of time for us to really hone into, you know, making sure we understand accessibility, and making sure that we understand these particular points that have us where we are right now in all sense of the word.
I think just real quick, I mean, like from what Jorge was saying, based like on data and finding out that there's, you know, these communities, population of Latinos, you know, in Germany, in Australia, in Sweden. I mean, they do say we're everywhere. So, you know, that has helped too, just to see how global, you know, we are. And it's now taking advantage of knowing those things, that we're just, you know, all over the place. So it's good and bad, I guess.
Well, that actually, there's two questions I kind of skimmed over. I'm going to just merge them together because both of you sort of touched on it. One of the questions is, how has the internet and digital distribution contributed to the growth of Latin music, and where are you seeing its impact around the world? And the second was more about genres. There are genres within the greater Latin music category that are deeply rooted in heritage and tradition. How has the commercialization of these genres impacted its relationship to Latin culture? So this is both about just you know, the representation of Latin culture and heritage being sort of commercialized into something for the masses, and then also you know, how these different conduits like internet and distribution has created this reach and these new places around the world where Latin music is being engaged. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, the internet certainly democratized the music industry, and it really took away I wouldn't say that it took away the entire power of the majors, but it certainly created independence as a major force to be reckoned with. And I saw that a lot, you know, in different genres, but I'm seeing it a lot more now in terms of Latin music in general. You know, there's definitely more possibilities. There's more outlets to get your music out there, and that exposes your material to a new fan base. You know, just being able to distribute content into Boomplay, for example, which has, you know, huge African sort of like focus, that's helping to expose and expand the reach of a Latin artist from a little country with a loud voice, which I love that, all the way to, you know, a huge continent, huge countries, et cetera. So I think that's definitely helping. And I think, you know, in general, artists and everyone are just becoming smarter and smarter, using the data, putting it to work, but starting to get more organized. And you see that a lot more with certain newer artists than you do with some of the old school, which is like why, you know, we as a company try to focus a lot on even educating the old school and just sort of like trying to help reorganize all that documentation, all these old split sheets, all these different things that are important, just because that's who paved the way sort of for us in general as well. And I see a little bit more recently of sort of like younger artists wanting to pay tribute to those that paved the way, and also like put folks on, which I think is really, really cool.
Mhm.
I definitely agree with everything that Jorge just said. But as a lawyer, I'm always thinking about all the things that technology brings with regards to the rights of the creators. And I was thinking that with regards to the fixation requirement, the U.S. copyright law, that you have to, for the people that are listening to us, you have to fix your music in a tangible medium of expression. So technology has helped us and creators to be able to fix that and protect their creations. And with regards to that, I think that, for example, traditional music, now they have more resources to be able to exploit their music, and obviously through the internet and as easy distribution that we have right now is very a benefit. It's a benefit for them to have it. So I was thinking about all those legal aspects of this issue, and I definitely agree with Jorge with regards to everything that he just said.
Great, I appreciate that. Well, I definitely think, again, as we look at the internet and distribution and partners like Symphonic, you're not only this source on the internet, but you have presence in these markets on the ground. I know when you announced some markets recently in the last several months, I thought that was impactful because again, you're having this conversation and you're actually on the ground in those spaces and making sure that creators locally are learning about the opportunities and the ways to use resources and get their music out there. So now I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit more. I think this has been a great conversation so far about just the genre and Latin music creators and its impact. I'm going to dive a little bit into rights now, and just pull up somehow I lost my batch of questions. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the music rights and licensing landscape in the United States is ever evolving. As we know, we just passed the Music Modernization Act in 2018, which has established the MLC and our new license. Has the Latin music community kept up with those changes? I'm going to start with you, Yaira.
Well, I think maybe 4 years ago, I was like, most of the people didn't know anything about all the different elements that are in this industry, from the rights perspective. But right now, I feel like, I think Stephanie mentioned it, I feel like people are starting to get curious about it and really are starting to get more information about how all those societies, including obviously the Mechanical Licensing Collective and all the other societies, relate to each other and how we can use it for the benefit of the creators. So I think Stephanie just mentioned it, and I feel like people are responding to the information that we are putting out there.
I think it's and agreeing with you, Jira. I mean, it's a process definitely of education, and now being that people have more access to the information and just making it easier for them to get that access. Because there's definitely still a lot of confusion on who does what and when they need to do it or why they need to do it. And sometimes, people, some of these creators, they're skeptic about joining, because they don't have the right information, and it's an education process. And like you mentioned before, and having the tools being provided in the language also, that's always something that brings comfort, for some people to understand exactly what they're doing, what they're signing for, why are they, why do they need to join.
Yeah, I would say that specifically in that sense of you know, making sure that people are able to read things in their native language is what makes people more comfortable, especially, you know, among the, you know, the Latinos coming from, you know, Puerto Rico, which obviously we have the same type, you know, similar type laws than the United States. So they would adhere to a lot of the things that we would be, right, that we would be speaking to. But even them making sure that there's entities such as a Protege tu Música and a Take Creative Control Latin that are able to you know, bring them this information within their native language is something that's comforting for them. And along with the play of the access to information as well. I mean, you know, we have our phones now, where, you know, where we do have internet on there, but we need to also think of the fact that, you know, historically, you know, we are marginalized communities where there's maybe some areas that, you know, that you don't have access, you know, to the internet. You know, when we're gonna speak on, you know, certain South American countries such as a Venezuela, and the issues that they have in Venezuela, even being able to actually distribute their music in general, to let alone be able to get at least $5 to put food on the table for their family. You know, in order for them to even get to that point, they need to at least have the information in their native language in order to know, okay, I'm in Venezuela, how am I able to translate this passion that I have and all this music that I have? How am I able to translate it to actually bring food on the table for my family? So access and information in our native language, I would say are two main things that we're struggling with.
Yeah, so I would agree. And I just want to piggyback on everybody's comments here. I think access to tools is really big. I mean, this isn't the music industry anymore where there's one guy or gal that can sort of do everything for you. You know, there's a lot of available technology that can give you that knowledge, that can give you that control. You know, one of the tools that I've seen that's really sort of, I think, gotten people more organized is just the aspect of doing royalty splits, like from a master's perspective on the distribution side. It's actually compensating more so the songwriters and, you know, the producers and engineers and all these different folks that make up a song more so than ever before. And before that, it was sort of just like, I'll just get the royalty and then I'll figure it out sort of thing. So being able to have some technology and more tools, at least educate somebody on knowing, you know what, these are the right things to do. And this helps everybody grow and thrive because, you know, if everybody's doing well, I firmly believe that the entire industry can, you know, grow and share from there. And I think every artist nowadays needs as much transparency as possible. There's all these tools out there, you know, for Spotify, Deezer, Amazon, for example, for you to be able to control your streams and get that real-time information. Distributors like ourselves provide it, many others do as well. And every artist that's looking to really take it seriously should, because ultimately you're building something of value, you're building a catalog, and you shouldn't have somebody necessarily take ownership of that so early on, in my opinion, in your career, just because there's a exit plan that you can build towards if that's what it is that you're looking to do. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. This takes me to my next question here. How can music creators who represent themselves become more informed rights holders and empowered and advocates of their own entitlements? And each of your organizations have been helping to contribute that in some way. So I'd like to hear from each of you on this. Not all at once. Do I like to repeat the question? How can music creators who represent themselves become more informed rights holders and empowered advocates for their own entitlements?
First of all, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you go for it. You go for it.
Okay. There's a lot of information right now out there, starting from our companies. We have a lot of materials out there, but I think artists should and composers should understand that there's a lot of people that can help them and guide them through the process, especially lawyers and other people that can give them just the right information for them to think who I need to contact and which society I need to join at this point of my career. So maybe they don't have, you know, the budget to hire an attorney, but maybe they can go to YouTube, to my channel, or to Take Creative Control channels, or all the information we have out there in Spanish for them to really take control of their creations.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to say self-teaching is huge. You know, there's tons of great stuff on YouTube, especially from lawyers. Those conversations can, you know, really, really help you make more informed decisions in general. And I think the industry is large, and with technology, it's growing much larger. You know, not to complicate the matter, but you know, a month ago we're talking a lot about NFTs and all these different new things, and what that does is really, you know, it can distract, it can confuse, but it's important to still at least kind of be aware of what these things are and just continue to learn about them, because it's an industry that's changing really rapidly, and I've been in it for a little while, and I haven't seen it sort of like move this quickly in this sort of digital age as it has been over the past, you know, 5 years or so. So I think self-teaching is definitely big, and YouTube and any sort of legal related kind of like knowledge that you can learn on, I think is massive.
I think that it's really important to, you know, to make sure that artists understand the importance of a lawyer, and I feel like Gira can definitely speak on that. And that the fear of the money, I feel is something that is right. It's put on creators' heads so much. Like, you know, as a creator, you come into this, and you know, you just have this intense passion. But then it's like, when you really look into things, it's like, okay, one of the best people that will be on your side is a lawyer. So I feel like informing, you know, through different entities such as my own and Gita's as well is really important. But just the importance of having that legal counsel is really important to just know, because that's going to help you navigate through so many different, you know, realms of the industry. And the lawyer is going to be with you, you know, through thick and thin, and whatever it is you need, right? That person can be your mentor as well. But that fear of the money is what drives, I would say, like an independent artist to that, or just creator in general, to that point of like, I don't know if I can do this because of the money. All right. And which is super unfortunate, but making sure that people have that relationship with a lawyer, and understanding, obviously, you know, the landscape that we do have right now, as everything is digital and more, right? You're able to be a little bit more self-sufficient, and able to find things on your own, through YouTube University and all that type of stuff. But making sure that we're putting out the importance of legal counsel before anything, I think is something that should be done as often as possible, especially with historically marginalized communities like ours, where, you know, where we always kind of get the bad end of the stick at times with information that's readily out there, but we just might not have the money for it, you know?
I think it's, you know, it's part of knowing that making the music is as important as knowing how to be in the business. And that was something that I think we've always, all of us here, I think we always encourage people, you need to learn the business. And like what Jorge was saying, you know, there's so many ways of self-teaching, you know, but you need to read and learn a little bit of the business before you put yourself out there, because then, you know, that's when the bad things happen.
I appreciate that. What are some ways that the key stakeholders within the U.S. music rights ecosystem, such as societies and even, you know, business and legal affairs within companies, you know, if you're signing a Latin music artist to a record deal or to a publishing deal, you know, that you know, those teams and administration are sort of part of the ecosystem, since they're going to get the data into you know, societies. What are some of the ways that key stakeholders within the U.S. music rights ecosystem can better serve Latin music creators?
First, I think not to just give a huge plug here, but what you guys are doing here in terms of doing this panel is definitely part of the process. It's being able to talk about these things, to different audiences or to as many audiences as possible to continue that education. I think, every business and everybody can do what they can, certainly to improve diversity and inclusion, hiring across as many diverse landscapes as possible, I think really helps Latin creators, but also creators of many different, ethnicities and so forth. I also think that in general in Latin, just offering better deals. I still see some deals that come through my inbox of what competitors are offering, and it's pretty grabby and very, I would say a little bit more steered towards the companies. And I understand that everybody needs to make business and grow their revenues, but there's a lot of comparables that are out there if you just do the research, if you're getting a distribution deal or a publishing deal in that regard. So I think, really paying attention to the fine print, working with legal, all those things are very key. And I think important for stakeholders in our market when they're looking at different markets as well.
Okay. I know that here at the MLC, we have support which is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But we also provide that support with translators. So if someone needed to have that support conversation translated in Spanish, that's possible with MLC. What gaps, if any, do you see when considering the increase in Latin music creators, the growth and reach of Latin music as a genre, and the economic impact on labels, publishers, and creators of Latin music? So in other words, are there gaps? And even though we're seeing that Latin music as a genre is increasing year over year, is that trickling down into the pockets of creators? Is that going to the independent Latin music labels that may or may not have the team in place to do certain types of administration, like neighboring rights, for example? So even though we see this genre is growing, we see it everywhere. You have artists in different territories doing Latin-inspired music. Are we seeing that economic impact on that at the level for creators and the mom and pop labels that have been pushing this movement forward?
I feel like right now we see a vast majority of labels within in specific Latin urban that you see that are independent. What I would say the gap would be is the educational part within the actual teams, and just the education in general, right? Because it's not just about collecting that BMI check, which a lot of creators, that's kind of like, and teams, sometimes that's kind of the first thing that they think of, or like, oh, el cheque de YouTube, like the YouTube check. When you really think about it, like I said, I believe it would really be that lack of education, that correct education. And I mean, you can do a lot of marketing and all that, this type of stuff, and be everywhere, but still, if you don't have education in the most minute part, it's you're missing out on a lot of money, and maybe those numbers that are currently out there could be even more. So like I said, I mean, really that education within teams is really important, and just that translation of again, I feel like it really kind of goes back to that as well.
I agree with Stephanie, and also I've seen from my perspective as a lawyer, I've seen a lot of people that have been working in the industry with a lot of different concepts that are not as accurate as you might want it to be, and sometimes they resist for us to tell them how things should be. And I've been working with a lot of big labels and independent labels, and it's I see like the same thing. I didn't want it to repeat it, but it is obviously it's education what we need from the lower levels to the higher levels.
I would agree with that too. I mean, education is where it's at. So I didn't want to, I didn't want to just keep saying the same thing, but I firmly believe in that. It would be, it's going to be a process for other things such as, pay rates in different markets increasing, but maybe as these services work hard to convert free based streaming services to paid, then the overall royalty pool can increase and therefore additional funds can come in and effectively just raise the pay rates in different markets, since there is pretty huge disparity currently.
Definitely. I think like what Stephanie was saying, in the different teams of a lot of these independent labels, they, the people don't know. I mean, sometimes things as basic as registering a song, they don't know the how, or they do it and it's not, well, let me register. I'm in that song. I'm going to register the song 100% me. And so it's like everybody's saying here, it's a process of, learning, of the education process of understanding how to do these things.
Mhm.
And that's when then there's this gap on how people, get their money or how they get paid for, their contribution to that one song.
Mhm. No, I agree. I've seen in my work, previously before the MLC, building software tools for music rights holders and small labels and publishers, is speaking to people who are in a position of influence or power for a creator, especially like their, the label reps or publisher rep. But those people may not be as up to date on what's going on. So, that is a huge challenge because the creators are putting their confidence in, where they sign, whether it's with the publisher or with the label, expecting that publisher or label, which might have their best interest in mind, but, awareness of something is ignorance. Or not having that awareness of something is basically ignorance, and that means that if you're putting your faith in the person that signed you to the label, that they have everything covered, or signed you to a publishing company, they have everything covered, and they don't. You simply don't know that you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that you might be missing out on royalties like this $424 million historical unmatched that we've collected at the MLC. So it's important that even I tell artists and songwriters the same is like, even when you signed with a label or publisher, your work isn't done. You need to still be on top of your business and checking up and following up with your label and publisher reps to see like, okay, is everything registered? If your work released and you get picked up on a big playlist, and I'm sure George, you see this all the time. You get picked up on a couple of big playlists, your streams are going to change like overnight. And 1 month it may have been good, and next month it could be amazing streams. But if your works aren't properly registered everywhere, like in the case of MLC, then you're not going to see the full benefit of that uptick, because the royalties are flowing through different pipelines. So that actually brings me to spend a little bit of time now talking about the MLC. I know we dived right into the conversation, but I want to make sure that everyone who's watching knows who the MLC is. So I'm going to share my screen and go over a quick presentation, and then we're going to jump into Q&A in the last few minutes here. So let me just. All right, so the Mechanical Licensing Collective was created pursuant to the Music Modernization Act of 2018. The MLC offers a new blanket license for digital music providers such as Spotify and Apple to cover mechanical licensing of US-based interactive streaming and downloads. The US Digital Audio Services will pay the MLC the mechanical royalties that are earned from streams, and then we pay songwriters and publishers and CMOs in different territories. The MLC is the exclusive administrator of the new blanket license. The MLC is the only organization that can collect and distribute the royalties paid pursuant to this new blanket license to rights holders. So what the MLC does, we establish and maintain a public database of musical works ownership information, which you can access on our website, themlc.com. We administer a new blanket license covering the mechanical rights available to eligible digital audio services operating in the United States. We receive and match sound recording usage reporting data from digital audio services within the MLC's Musical Works ownership database. And then we collect and distribute US digital audio mechanical royalties to music publishers, administrators, foreign mechanical rights organizations, and self-administered songwriters, composers, and lyricists. To these last 2 points, we made an announcement, and you can see this information on our website under our news of our, we've received over $424 million in historical unmatched royalties. These are mechanical royalties associated with the streams of sound recordings embodying the musical works, which are melodies, lyrics of songwriters. And we are charged with matching that historical unmatched to the proper copyright owners and making those payments out in the form of distributions. This month, we did our first distribution of royalties under the new blanket license, royalties that were earned in January this year. The license went into effect on January 1st. And in the month of January, those streams that were earned under covered DSPs were basically calculated and paid out this month in distributions to songwriters and publishers. So it's really amazing to see that the first checks or direct deposits, if you have direct deposit, have been sent out to songwriters and publishers for the use of their music on streaming services. It's key to note that the MLC will not administer performance rights for musical works or collect performance royalties. We will not administer digital performance rights for sound recordings or collect digital performance royalties. We do not administer mechanical rights for physical products such as CDs and vinyl and cassettes. And we will not administer any licenses or collect any royalties related to audiovisual works or lyrics. And we will not administer licenses or collect royalties for the use of musical works outside the United States. So we are US only organization administering for US usage. The MLC will not replace your PRO. So if you're with ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC, this is simply another organization that you must join regarding your mechanical royalties, and we will not replace Sound Exchange. So what you should do now is become a member at our website, themlc.com. You can check your data. So if you're a publisher tuning in or an administrator, it's important to check your catalog against our database. We acquired database of Harry Fox Agency. We announced that partnership over a year ago and as our vendor. And we've been in the process of cleaning up the data that we have received, as well as new data that we've gotten in from other registrations. So it's important that members check their data through our DQI process. You can learn more about the DQI process on our website, mlc.com/resources. And then lastly, you can confirm your payment information and making sure that we have the proper payee information so we can pay you out. This is a quick overview of the US digital music sort of ecosystem and where we sit in this space. So under musical works, which are sort of your melodies and your lyrics, your songs, you have public performance rights, which are rights granted to copyright owners, and the reproduction and distribution rights, which are embodied in mechanical royalties. Performance rights have performance royalties. Under performance rights, those royalties are paid out by performing rights organizations. So you're familiar with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Global Music Rights, and those royalties are paid out to publishers via publisher share and to writers via writer shares. Under the mechanical license and mechanical royalties, if it's under the blanket, the new blanket license, those royalties are paid out exclusively through the MLC, and we pay out mechanical shares to publishers and self-administered songwriters. And if it's a voluntary license, which are direct licenses between a DSP and a rights holder, which can be facilitated, for example, by a third party like a Music Reports or Harry Fox, those voluntary license royalties are paid out through whatever entities are part of that arrangement, and those are paid to your publishers and songwriters. On the sound recording side, we have the reproduction and distribution rights, which are wholesale proceeds like your digital downloads, your physical sales, your interactive streams. Those royalties are paid through your distributors and aggregators like George's company, Symphonic Distribution, which pays out to record labels and self-release artists. And then you have digital performance rights, which are performance rights for sound recordings in the United States, which is paid out through Sound Exchange. So this is basically your landscape. This graphic is available on our website as well, so you can go grab that. I think it's a really interesting and really clear way of looking at the digital music landscape in the United States and making sure that under each of these categories that you're properly set up to collect. So who needs to become a member of the MLC? Well, all publishers and administrators and CMOs who have the right to collect digital audio mechanical royalties from the licensees in the United States, and then self-administered songwriters and composers and lyricists who have retained the right to collect their digital audio mechanical royalties from licensees in the United States. The MLC will pay anyone entitled to collect mechanical royalties for a given musical work. And unlike performance royalties, mechanical royalties are not separated into writer's share or publisher's share. So you could potentially collect 100% of your mechanical royalties if you're a self-administered songwriter representing your own works. To become a member, you go to our website, mlc.com, and click on the blue Connect to Collect button, and that'll get you started. Earlier, Stephanie mentioned something in regards to a fear of money. I like to say that the MLC is a free sign up, so there's no cost to sign up for the MLC. We are a nonprofit. We also do not have an administration fee on the royalties that we collect. So 100% of the royalties that we collect are paid out to the proper recipients if they're register and register their works. The Data Quality Initiative is an important initiative for companies with large catalogs. So if you're a publisher, if you're a rights administrator, even songwriters who might have hundreds of works over their career, this is a process for checking all of your works in a bulk form against our database so that you can identify quickly any discrepancies such as missing data or incorrect data, and then you're able to act on cleaning that up so that in the future, you don't. It limits issues that might steer from bad data in the system. We do have a portal, the MLC portal. You can sign up for that. That enables you to log in and manage your catalog, as well as check your statements and download statements and look at your royalties and things like that. Our monthly statements and payments. So the MLC pays out on a monthly basis. We began our first distribution this month of April. We're making distributions every month going forward. Those payments are for usage earned 2 months prior. So in January, for example, when that period ended, the payments for January was paid out in April, 75 days after the close of the period. For February, that'll be paid out in June. For March, that'll be paid out in July, and that's pretty much the cadence going forward. And again, this information is available on our website in regards to royalty distributions. The MLC support, again, is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have support available on the phone, via email, and in our chat. You can also access this information on our website. And like I said earlier, if needed, there is a translator that can help with your support. And to learn more about the MLC, go to mlc.com and browse our website. All right, so it was a quick little MLC commercial. We have a few minutes left. We're going to dive into the Q&A. I'm going to try to stick to the Q&A questions that are on topic here. So the first question I have here is from Rafaeli, and he asks, hello, we have some questions that are indirectly related to this webinar. Okay, does the MLC have a dispute process when another publisher incorrectly claims ownership of a musical work? And number two, as of the unclaimed works, how can publisher already enrolled in the MLC have access to that list? So I'll quickly answer that. The MLC will have a process for publishers to work out disputes. We have a committee that is responsible for advising us on disputes and resolutions. So that is, and that committee includes songwriters, independent songwriters, and publishers. As of the unclaimed works, we will have a database accessible not only to members, but also to the public of unclaimed or unmatched works. So that is important to keep up with if your works are not being included in our royalty distributions. Okay, this question is for the panel. How has the proliferation of Musica Urbana has affected publishers who own or control catalogs that include music from important folkloric and traditional genres attached to Latin American culture? Deep one, who wants to jump in that? I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
How has the proliferation of Musica Urbana has affected publishers who own or control catalogs that include music from important folkloric and traditional genres attached to Latin American culture?
I would say that's a very interesting question. First off, I think in general, right now, there's a ton of interest in catalogs from many different genres, but I would say the Latin genre is growing in general, therefore that's increasing royalties. But then there's a lot of big funds and or publishers that are looking to continue to acquire more catalog. And I think that there's a huge interest in doing that in terms of Latin, especially across other markets as well. So I would probably say that the interest has gone up just because the overall interest in buying catalogs has gone up. And I don't know if that directly answers, but that was my attempt to, at least.
This one's actually, it might be directed to you, George, but anyone can answer this. What is the best way for independent artists to try and land a distribution deal?
Sure. So I'll go first. So, for us as a company, we're pretty selective over who we want to take on for distribution, but there's a ton of different options out there. I would say if you're a new artist, one that's starting out, it definitely does not hurt to be able to use a DistroKid or a TuneCore, or any of those, and sort of get your music out there and kind of start to build your team. I very much believe in the teams aspect that we've discussed here. So that way you can work with a different type of distributor that's looking to then complement that team. That's what we try to do. We generally do keep a percentage of revenue. It's, in the 15% and sometimes under, depending on the situation. But what we're trying to do as a distributor is be selective so that we can actually add value to who we work with. And that means from a marketing and or, external support, et cetera, perspective. But in many cases, if you're new and starting out, I think it's totally fine to use kind of like the software platforms of the DIY based distributors out there that can just get your music out there so you can get some learnings and findings and start to build your team with legal and different other aspects as well.
Thank you. This question is, I guess, for me. If I'm already a member of the MLC and have songs registered with this entity, can I still register with Songtrust? So in general, if you are a self-administered songwriter who represents the administration rights in your works, meaning the ability to register your works and collect your royalties, you can become a member of the MLC. If you use a third party that is responsible for registering your works and collecting your royalties, such as a publishing administrator like Songtrust, then it's their responsibility to do that on your behalf. They're already a member of the MLC and they will be collecting royalties on your behalf. The exception is if you have works that are not covered under that arrangement with your publishing administrator. So if you signed up with a publishing administrator who represents 90% of your catalog and then the last 10% of your catalog you self-administer, then for those works you can become a member of the MLC. So that's the little exception. The MLC with the MLC, do independent artists still need Harry Fox agency? So the Harry Fox agency, the MLC, we administer the blanket license only. There's a lot of other ways to collect, to earn mechanical royalties that we do not cover. So agencies like Harry Fox Agency, Music Reports, there's other companies that are in the mechanical rights space. You still need to have a working relationship with those organizations, those companies, because they're dealing with direct licenses. We don't deal with direct licenses. We exclusively administer the blanket license. So there's other types of usage that falls under their work, and you still want to make sure you have a relationship with those companies. Okay, we've gone over, but I wanted to give a brief moment for each panelist to give any final thoughts and also to plug your companies and organizations and where they can learn more about your organizations. And I'll start from who's closest to me on the screen, which is George.
Thank you guys very much. This was very informative. It's great to be on with all of the folks on here as well. So our site is symphonic.com, and we actually have a localized website called symphoniclatino.com. And also now a Brazilian one as well, and growing. But I'd say definitely pay attention to what's happening in the MLC. A lot of great knowledge that they're giving, but just an incredible, monumental shift in the music industry that I think should get more credit than what I think it normally does, in my view. So it's great to be a part of this, and feel free to hit us up if anything, and if any questions.
Oh, sorry. Yara.
You can find me on protegetmusicatv.com, as well as you can find me on my YouTube channel and all the socials. Obviously, as I mentioned previously, I offer legal services because I'm an entertainment lawyer, but I also assist all of the creators with regards to everything related to the music industry. So I'm here for you, and everything is in Spanish. So if people are looking for something in Spanish and material in Spanish, I'm right here for you. Thank you, Dave, for having me here.
Absolutely. Delia.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think, this is the first of many panels that I think it's what we were talking about education and staying informed. And just from the group of panelists, I think this was a great session. And as far as for the Latin Songwriters Hall of Fame, I think one of our main goals is to, recognize and preserve the music that we all love. And hopefully, we'll get to have our event again pretty soon, and hope to see you guys all there. And once again, thank you for having me. And those that know me know that I'm always here to help, and in any way I can. I'm passionate about the songwriters.
And Stephanie.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of leave you guys with this thought that there's the streaming surge. Yeah, it's definitely come from the Latin urban market, and I feel like we should definitely acknowledge that, but also acknowledge the fact that we are young as a collective. If we're gonna compare if we're gonna compare this to hip hop coined back in 1974, reggaeton and música urbana and all that, another historically marginalized communities, we're young, so within the education factor, I'm not giving us a cushion or a pillow, but within the education factor, we have a lot to learn. But that's the beautiful thing about this, that panels like this here with you guys at the MLC, these are things that we're able to, as this young genre is slowly continuing to take over. It's really important that we do these types of educational panels. So really excited to be here with you guys and be part of this, this primary panel, and be able to continue educating in the resources, necessary in Spanish for everybody. So in the Take Creative Control Latin side, again, we're just here to assist creators in all sense of the word, not just music creators, but just creators in general, in order to just continue learning and continue educating yourself in Spanish, your native language.
Maybe next time we do the panel in Spanish.
Yeah.
We actually had that conversation. So I want to thank each of you for your time today and this great panel. I think it's been a really good conversation about Latin music in general, and then diving into music rights. For those who've tuned in, if you work with organizations as well and you'd like to talk to me, you can reach out to me at partnerships@themlc.com. as we continue to build our relationships in the Latin music community, one organization at a time. So thank each of you, and we'll be following up with, I'm sure there'll be more MLC and initiatives with each of your companies in the future. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.